Lights.
Oh.
Camera.
Okay.
Speed.
Crafty.
Most importantly.
Yeah.
Where's the crafty? Where's the crafty?
Crafty. Talent.
I can't work like this.
You're doing great. You're doing
even better.
Yeah. And action, Kirk.
Do this that way.
Okay,
and
cut. Well, welcome to the Man and Doozy podcast, everyone.
Yes, you're all probably thinking, what the hell is going on? They can never get anything
we can't,
right
we
at the
can't
beginning.
direct. We're not good with directing these cold opens here.
Yes, yeah.
No.
Because we don't prepare at all.
Exactly, we don't. And then we take like a month off and we come back and we try to pull it out of thin air. It just doesn't work.
How do you improv? What is that?
We don't.
Yeah.
Well, the word doozy means something that is extraordinary or outstanding of its kind.
And we are not that, obviously.
But we want to be. I mean, but if we're not close now, then I'm giving up.
Yeah, it's like the moment that we think that we are close, we take a month off.
Yes. Yeah, right back where we started.
Do life. And so this is the podcast that we are going to give you all the tools on how to become successful in life. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I learn skills for specific, times throughout the year? Or how do I do a specific profession?
Yeah. How do I do anything?
How do I... Yeah, one of these days we'll do how do you do a cold open.
Yeah, exactly. And the best part is, how to improv we haven't done yet.
That's right. That's on our list.
The best part is we're going to learn how to be successful ourselves, while we are also teaching you how to be successful yourself.
Makes sense to me.
I'm Alex, can't improvise Staub.
And I'm Kirk, lights,
I used
camera,
to be able to.
Speed, crafty, action. Yeah, Koz. Yeah.
Love it.
Amazing.
Well, what are we going to talk about today?
We're talking about something that's very exciting. It is in our world of that, we call our professions and stuff. We've been dipping into the entertainment industry and film and TV.
We did How to DP a little while ago. So
yep,
yeah,
the director of photography.
We're dipping in the film world now, which is nice.
Which is, if you have the connections to, it's great. And it's the one industry that pulling back the curtain can be mind blowing.
Yeah,
the things that you can learn. It is literally a film or TV set from a regular person's standpoint is what the hell is that circus?
Right.
But it always comes together somehow. And there's very important people that help bring that together. And so we are going to be talking about how to be a director.
Ooh.
Directors.
Like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese. Yeah, all that type of
So
stuff.
directors are these visionaries, these people who kind of drive the artistic vision of a project. One of the things that's coming to my mind is the reason why we say Spielberg and Scorsese is it's almost like they have their own style or whatever.
Yeah.
Like an auteur filmmaker. They have their... And there's a way to just direct, and then there's everybody has their own flair to it. So it's very...
Yeah, these people are the conductors of the orchestra, Literally. I mean, you've got all different departments going crazy, putting little pieces together, and there's one person, and that's the central point of it all, to make sure that it all comes together and it sounds perfect and is beautiful.
That's right.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about directors, but I'm using a metaphor.
Yeah. No, I got it. I was following.
But we don't really know. I feel like, let me ask you, have you ever directed anything?
Okay. So, being an actor, it's you try to always challenge yourself with skills or at least learning certain skills or reading about them. The only time I ever directed was my senior year in college. It was a requirement that by the end of the year you had to direct a 30-minute one act. And that was like so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like really kind of mind blowing because, you know, in a place like an undergraduate degree, there's like you're given all these steps that you need to make. So it was kind of like a little like nerve wracking. I wanted to make sure that like I was meeting the steps. But as you grow older, you kind of find your own way with how you direct things. I think that I'd like to direct again, but that's the only time that I've done it. Like literally age 21, 22.
Okay.
What about you?
Nice. I directed a short film in college for like my senior year like project.
Hell yeah.
And it was I wrote it, and everyone was on board and wanted to actually make it. So they were like, "All right, well, you're gonna direct it too." I was like, "Okay, let's do this." And it's cool being a director where it's like, "Okay, here's the idea. Let's do it," and everybody from like all different aspects that you need come together to like make your dream happen.
Yeah.
You know? And everyone's on board to support it.
And one of my favorite things about directors is they are all different and they all communicate their vision in different ways. They communicate with talent differently, with other departments differently. And I always find that so engaging, and there's so much that you can learn about that.
Mm-hmm. There is.
Yeah.
But we don't really know what's going on director-wise.
There's always so much more to learn.
Yeah, and this is a special episode because we have someone here who's Spielberg level, okay?
Yeah!
Like Spielberg level, Scorsese. He blows them out of the water.
Absolutely.
Okay? I'm very excited because today on the podcast we have our very own director.
Yes.
And his name he's a very close friend, ex-lover. He's the best. And, I always love watching him work. Everyone put your hands together for Casey Jost.
Yes.
That was enlightening. You guys did a really good job breaking down like kind of the roles of what a director should do and does and what it can be when it's great.
I thought it was a train wreck, but we're doing great.
You know, it's like you run a podcast for 3 years, and oh my God, we forgot to post for our 3-year anniversary.
Oh wow!
Oh my God,
we need a director.
We need a director. But yeah, it's like.
But that's the best when you think it's like. You know what? You're like, this is a mess, and then the director comes up and goes, "That was great."
That was the take that
and
we're
you're
gonna
like,
use.
"What?" You're like, "What?"
Casey, it is such a pleasure to have you here. We're both so excited to just kind of dive into this because there's practical things that you can learn about directing, and there's also kind of like artistic, creative ways that you can learn. I guess the best place to start.
Yeah, I guess just start out by saying, you know, how did you get into all this? And
yeah,
you know.
So I guess it's interesting because I definitely enjoy directing, but I've done so many other roles leading up to it that I'm not sure if I fully consider myself like purely a director. Like I've written for so much stuff. I still like to be in front of camera sometimes, but. For the sake of this podcast, I'll mostly just wear that hat. And I started similarly. I was listening to Kirk talk about how he directed in college, and how that was like the first time that you did that. And I remember having to be in charge of certain things creatively directing certain projects in college. And I think that's like when you first get the bug of like having to self-produce and self-direct and make your own stuff. So I'd say I started like that. And then you just meet people, in that beautiful way. And, you hear what they're doing and you're like, oh, I want to do that too. And you just kind of keep following that. So long story short, that led me to, writing for some shows and writing for Impractical Jokers. And now I'm the director there. I had directed this weird, I would say I had directed like some, Friends web series and stuff. Like it's just small things where I just kind of shot it, edited it, directed it all, had to kind of do all that stuff. And that's really fun because you learn a lot and you fail a lot and you learn, quicker from failing.
That's for sure.
And yeah. And then working on Jokers for a long time, I got asked to direct this like kind of hidden camera prank that starred Will Smith and Target.
Okay.
And this was pre-slap.
It will forever
pre-slap.
Forever moving forward. It's pre-slap. It's going to be pre-slap and post-slap, and now pre-Jada Pinkett memoir.
Yes.
Post-Jada Pinkett memoir.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry.
I would work with him post-slap. I would work with him post-Jada. Like I love him. I grew up on him. I don't know. I can't. I could separate the slap from the artist.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to, because a slap does not dictate what an artist can do.
So that was like the first, like, kind of, I would say, what people would consider big thing I directed. And then from there, I was really just like, oh, I'm going to keep writing. I don't know how much I'll be directing. And with Jokers, we lost a director, and they were like, I was helping find a director, and I had pitched people and they couldn't do it for whatever reason. And then I was like, can I do it? And I basically like asked and explained how and what I would do and like my plan and stuff like that. And they said yes. And so I've been there since. That was in season 9.5, and I did all of the rest of 9.5, all of 10, and it was so much fun.
That's so exciting. I was kind of perusing your IMDb pro earlier today, and you've been working with the Jokers now for what, like maybe 8-9 years, or
I think it's like 12. I think it's like 11 or 12.
Really? Wow.
Nice.
I mean,
Yeah, since season 1. I mean, so
Wow.
when the show started, there were no positions, so I don't even know if I have any credits from season 1 or 2, because like they just didn't call us anything. It was I actually, when the show started, I took like a huge career opposite direction, and I had been like writing for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, but still, like, I didn't have a gig, and so it was a gig. But I took a job on Impractical Jokers as a PA that wrote with the guys and helped produce, and I had to do locations. I basically I was like a mini, like a production, I was a mini director because I had to do all these things, but I got no credit, and I think I made I think it was like $800 a week. It was like so insane.
Wow. It sounds like the guys were like, hey, do you mind doing everything and also hang out with us?
Yeah, exactly. That's us.
We'll give you a stipend.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is they were making nothing pretty much, and they were doing everything too. So it was like hard for me to complain when they also were like, because it was such a grassroots, small time, like True TV was nothing. The show was not close to what it became, and it has become, but like it was not considered, like the network wasn't even a comedy network. It was like all really weird reality shows of like tow trucks. So it was bizarre. It was like another planet. And so we just sort of, I'm glad that that's a good lesson there. It's like sometimes you take a step backwards so that you could take 2 steps forward, and I think if you believe in it, or at least like if you feel like you'll get something out of it, even just like a good time. Like I had known Sal from the Jokers for a long time, and he asked me if I wanted to work on it. I had also done the theme song for the original theme song for the show. I'm a musician. Right. And so I was working on it that capacity. He was like, do you want to just keep working? And like, we don't have room for writers, but we have room for PA, and you could always write with us. And so I was like, yeah, let me just do it. And it worked out.
That is so cool. Well, I think this is a great place to kind of jump into these tips.
Yeah. So, and I've also seen Casey direct firsthand.
You've seen him in action.
I've seen him in action, and he's very good.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Yeah. So
I appreciate that.
So Casey, everyone, he has provided us with the top 5 tips. In his opinion, the most important way to navigate how to be a director.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, I would say my caveat is that this is like what I think is like rings true for me, and how I got into it, and how I how I believe, because I actually, like, we'll talk about it. There are some of these things that I think the first one, I actually think that there are people who very much are successful in the opposite of what I say. So let's go whenever you want to start.
Well, without further ado,
let's do it. Let's jump in. These are the top 5 tips on how to be a director, everyone. Number 5, don't be a piece of shit. All right, well, I can't be a director.
Yeah, Staub can never be a director.
God, well, we stop there. That's the episode.
I'll take over the tips.
Don't yell at people. Okay. Stop being a dick. Yeah.
They really Casey really doubled down on don't be Staub.
Yeah, it just don't be Staub.
You've never been a dick in terms of like our relationship at least.
Well, thank you for that. But I'm definitely a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't specify. I definitely think that this is a way that certain people have become successful and continue to be successful.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I actually, this is just, I kind of feel nothing's worth being a dick. Like this, like whatever you're producing, whatever you're making, your art is not worth treating people poorly. And I think it's like, it's just not who I am too. So I think that it's easy for me. I think there are people who bring like their baggage and they get things done that way, and it's easier for them to be a dick, and it might work for certain people. I mean, I think it's embarrassing, but if it works for you and you want to continue and you're not run out of the industry or whatever, then I guess keep going if that works for you. But I think it's like, I think it's really embarrassing when people are like dicks in a thing that's like supposed to be fun.
I totally agree with that, because I think the main thing that we can point to the obvious is a director is intrinsically a collaborative and creative like position. Mm-hmm. And if you're being a dick and a piece of shit, nobody wants to collaborate with you or be creative with you. It kind of halts any progress in that, at least in my opinion.
No, you need to have the whole crew on your side.
Yeah, because if you don't, there's going to be a revolt.
Yeah. If you're yelling at the camera guy and he's like, "All right, I'm not showing up tomorrow," then there you go. And
it's like, yes, you are. No, I'm not.
No, I'm not, dick.
Yeah, it's like, for me, I could never lead by like fear. I don't think I strike fear in people, but also like I would rather people want to do the right thing based on they like love of the project, or I could see maybe like playing a little sympathy card and being like, oh, I don't want to let the director let you down. And that's a different thing. That's not like fear, like he's going to bite my head off. Just like, I like working with this person, and if I drop the ball, it'll like bum him out, So it's like, I want that pressure that people have, but like people think that to get that pressure is through fear.
Yeah.
Stop. I don't know if I can work with Casey. I'm too terrified of his silver fox locks.
That's right. He's scary looking.
He's too scary handsome.
Anyway. Anyone with perfect hair frightens me.
Well, for you, that makes sense.
I've also noticed that, because I've worked on a lot of shows and with a lot of directors, and a majority of them can be assholes. And I think it's also because, like, they just don't, and I've seen it, they just don't really know how to handle like stress sometimes, and they'll take that out on like the crew and get like snappy and snippy because they don't know how to, they just can't handle like the pressure of like that scale.
Yeah, what's the percentage of like today's society's best directors who are currently in therapy? Probably not too many. or who have been.
Yeah.
Maybe they need
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anger management.
Anger management courses.
Well, because if they're like, okay, I gotta deliver this to the network, and like there's a lot riding on them for sure. That they have to deliver a lot, and if they're getting frustrated and then start taking it out on the crew, then the crew's gonna get frustrated, and then it's just not. It just creates like a hostile environment.
I think there's also like an understanding. Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of directors is like you almost like always have to know that it's never going to go perfectly. And it's how you navigate the bumps and the forks in the road, because like, I mean, the one thing that you have, which is so great, is you have like years experience. You have almost this blueprint of how to run it. So that's probably important too as a director to really have like a blueprint of how you're going to run it. And something like Joker's, I have no doubt there's less stress because you know how to navigate because you've been doing it for so long.
But also anything could happen on Joker's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's true.
Well, because you're talking to the public, it's a hidden camera, and
that's
so like
true.
Some guy could have a freak out, and then it's like, okay, do we cover this? Do we like what do we? You gotta.
That's so true.
You gotta make quick decisions in your head whether or not what we're doing is like worth the time.
Yeah.
Because you gotta be.
Yeah, you kind of plan out like what are the variables, and you could sort of guess a lot of them. You could never guess them all, but like you could guess the desired effect, and or there's the desired effect, and then there's the other possible effects that will come from whatever we're setting up. I know I'm talking vaguely, but it's like you have to kind of look forward, look ahead, and think of like what are some of you have to poke holes in everything, right? So our show, you truly, I think, cannot be a perfectionist. But I think there are probably, going back to what I said, I think there are probably directors who are perfectionists, and that works for them too. I am not, for sure. I'm like, if it changes, it's better off that it's changing. If it's like, if someone says, oh, we can't do this thing, like I barely fight for like my way, because I'd rather, I love problem solving. That's probably one of my strong suits in terms of directing, is like, if a problem comes, most people are like, but we already figured it out. And I'm like, there's never the end of figuring it out. There's always going to be more problems. So, and I love the feeling. So I'm kind of like, let's figure it out. And if there's a zero way of doing it, which is a possibility, then I think then we fight for like, no, we need that original way. But I'm kind of like, all right, like, let's see what we could do.
Yeah. You like, respect the crew in terms of like, if someone's like, oh, I let's not do that, you're like, okay, yeah, that's actually a good idea, let's do that, instead of like when you're trying to figure it out and someone's like, oh hey, and you're like, where's my fucking coffee?
Crafty,
you're fire, get the fuck out of here.
They get the coffee and I throw it on them.
That's right. What a dick.
So this top tip, I mean, the main thing is just don't be a piece of shit.
Person.
Be a good person. You can navigate this.
In any level. Although, like, I actually, the lower you go, the more I think I would give you way to be like. I've picked up fans at 3 a.m. for like a 6 a.m. call, and like if I've been in bad moods because of that, and I'm like, I understand if you did that and you didn't sleep, and you're a little bit like irritable, I give you carte blanche. Like I give you a pass if you are a PA and you picked up a van at 3 a.m. That means you left your house at like 2. You didn't sleep well. Like I think like you're allowed, as long as you're not really affecting everyone. If I ask you about something and you're like, you give a quick answer, you're snippy, I'm like, I'm gonna let that slide for sure.
Stare off.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but if like a producer that like rolled in at like 10:30 right before, if they're in a bad mood, I'm like, no, bro, no way, you're not allowed.
Well, what do you say? You ready to move on?
Yeah,
We're moving on to the top 4 tip.
Ooh.
The top 4 tip, everyone, is fake it till you make it. Popular little phrase. Fake it till you make it to a certain extent. But you gotta admit when you're clueless. Know thy flaws.
That's right.
Have humility. Amen.
That's right. Fake it till you make it. Casey, is your hair real or fake?
It's real. It's the
damn
number
it.
one question.
I could never work with it. I'm terrified.
Number one question. It's everywhere I go, people ask. Yeah, so this one's really interesting because it's like I'm like 2 different things at once, right? It's like fake it till you make it. You typically is like you have to fully fake it, but I'm like no. I think you go in. It's a little bit of that like say yes, even if it feels like it's a no. Like say yes to every opportunity, even if you feel like you'll be drowning. Take that risk and kind of like pretend that you know exactly what you're doing, because I think you could always figure it out. But if you are drowning, you need to ask for help. Like you need to admit, like, okay, I don't know how to do this. And then most of the time, if you're honest about it, people are like, oh, I want to help this person out, Yeah. And I think like it's if you're like, oh, I could do this. Oh, so like recently I had a project I was like kind of directing, and I was like, I could do everything, but put together this like budget, this line item budget, and I asked a friend to do it, and it worked out great. Like, so like I took over all the creative, and this person who's like mostly like a math-minded like personality was like, I'll do that. And then it was like a really nice way of like, if I could have said no because I was like, I don't know how to do this budget thing, but instead I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And I ended up not even figuring it out. I just let that person do it.
The math-minded people out there are doing God's work for creatives.
That's Alex Staub, though.
Yeah.
Heyo.
But the thing is, he's not actually doing it. He's getting help from his girlfriend who's a math
My entire life, I try to look way less stupid than I look.
Yeah. I really like this tip because, I mean, there's kind of a subjective view and ways of like fake it till you make it. What does that mean? I know for me, it's like you like you were saying, you got to trust that you know what to do. And if there are moments that the cinematographer or DP comes up to you and is like, "Hi, for this shot, do you want this lens or this lens?" The bigger one, sir.
Yeah.
If you don't, but the truth is, like, if you don't ever fake it, you'll never get to the next level because you're always going to be green. There's always going to be a moment in some part of your career that you're new to it, and the faster you pretend that you know what you're doing, the faster you'll learn it. You know, so it's really like it, you know. But like I say, to a certain extent, because you don't want to take on too much. Like if you're you know, going from taking too many steps can really kind of screw it up, and also like put a bad taste in your own mouth, not only like the collaborators you're working with.
Yeah, there's a line where like you're confident or like you look confident, and then if you go too far, then you just like then you're a dick. And then you're like, I know everything. I have no flaws. Blah blah blah.
And then there's also a line where it's like, all right, who's our editor, or who's our DP, who's our this, and it's like, wait, why is he taking on all of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, if you take, I think also it's like,
there's also
you don't want to take on too much responsibility. You want to be able to be focused.
Yeah, ask for help is definitely like hidden in this, because I worked with somebody who is really great, but also would never tell you when everything's going wrong. So it would just go wrong, and you're like, you need to let us.
Yeah, you're like, what's happening?
Oh, right. Like you just give us some time. So like, we'll help you and fix this. But you have to tell us in advance, you know. But that person was just hoping that they could continue to, you know, just keep the train on the tracks as long as it can, even though like it was destined to fall off. So it's like the quicker you let us know, the more of us can sort of anticipate it and all adjust.
Yeah.
There's
been so many times where someone's come up to me and they're like, "Oh, how do we do this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got it handled. Don't worry about it." And they'll walk away and I'll be like, "How the hell
do I do this thing?"
And I'm like, No, I got it. We're good. Yeah, everything's fine." They're like, "Really? Okay." And they'll walk away. I'll be like, "Dear God, how do I do this? Help!" But then that's led to them being like, "Oh yeah, Staub's got it. We're good." And then, I'll figure it out.
And then they're looking at you like, and you're like, on your phone,
everything's going wrong. I'm like, no, we're good. We're fine.
You're asking Bing AI how to do
AI.
For example, Staub, if I can, like, you know, this is just an example from like a real life example from our us working together on Jokers. I would come to you and say, "Hey, can you get a bottle of tequila?" And you would say, "Yeah, no problem." And then you'd have to actually like figure out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I just wanted to put it into terms of exactly something that we've been through on our show, which is me coming to you, asking for tequila.
You'd be like, "I want a seltzer water." I'm like, "Yeah, you do. I got you."
It's all about that crafty.
All about
the crafty is what keeps the creatives going.
All right, well, let's keep going.
Moving on to the third tip.
All right, number 3, everyone. Learn as much as you can about every department. Trust people to do their jobs. Yeah, you also, when you, I don't know, just as, because I've had people, I have people under me, and when you give them the space just to actually work and figure things out and you know, do their thing, then like, that's way better than like micromanaging people and being, you know, up their ass all the time.
One of my favorite things about being on a film or TV set is seeing everybody work, because they all have their certain things that they're doing, and it is all so specific. It's one of the like few things that in my opinion that you can like just fully watch and see, and it's like, this is all connected. It doesn't look like it, but it has been so interesting to people line up a shot or line up the lighting or block out some like coming in, or even like set pieces, set design. It's all so incredible. Yeah, I really love this tip.
The learning everything part of it too is really kind of fun, and I think important, because I'm not an expert in audio. I'm not a true DP, but I have worked in music my whole life. So like there's a lot of audio things I know, and I could speak the language to a certain extent. And with cameras, the same thing. Like I'm kind of a nerd about it. I always look stuff up. I want to know cameras, but I don't know everything. And so it helps to get on this, be able to talk to these departments and be like, what are we thinking? And, someone a long time ago, I was, into cameras like in college and stuff. And somebody was like, that instead of asking like to see the frame, Brad Pitt asks which millimeter lens they're using. And
it's so wild. Yeah.
And I think that's just like, that was like, oh, so even Brad Pitt, who's like really just acting, is like a geek, or like at least like wants to be knowledgeable. And there's a reason, like, so because it'll make his performance better. He knows if it's tighter, then he's acting more with his eyes, and if it's wider, he's acting more with his body. It's like, it's great. It's exactly what you should do.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I think one of I just remembered this, but do you know the show The Nick? With
oh my God, I loved The Nick.
So I was an extra in that.
Oh,
in that
you were?
show.
I almost did an extra.
It was. I was an extra in that show, and I was there watching. It was like this big party scene that I was there, and I was all dressed up. And Steven Soderbergh, right?
Yeah, Soderbergh.
Soderbergh. Yeah. I remember being in the crowd, and there was this shot where like this guy was like giving a speech to like all of us, and he stands up on the Apple box, and he's looking at the guy, and everyone's kind of like quiet, and he's just staring at the guy, and like his like camera guy or like AC or whatever, he shot it all himself there. So this guy pulled up a cart behind him, and he sat there and he just stared at like, the guy that was about to be on camera. He just stared at him for a while, and he's like, give me this. Give me this with this, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, nah, change it to the, and I just saw him like, the guy literally built the camera next to him and like how he wanted it customized. And then he put it on his shoulder, and then he filmed it. And it was incredible watching him be like in that moment, like, oh yeah, give me this lens, but change this out. I want this to look like that. And he knew every little piece of like what was about to film there. And it was cool watching it too.
Yeah. Watching.
I just remember him being like, I know exactly how I'm gonna fill this, and he did a couple takes with a couple different.
But it sounds like he was like exploring options too, which is probably in the moment.
He like understood what like all the elements were, and how to put it all together, and it was cool to watch.
That is so cool. Oh, I love that show.
Yeah,
I think it was too short-lived.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit, but I want to watch the whole series because I think he's a great director.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that trusting your team, but being knowledgeable so that you could really communicate with them is great. I think it just like it just all goes back to like, these are all ways to getting on the same page. I think that's what we're like edging towards. It's like, don't be a dick, be on the same page. It's like, fake it till you make it, like get on the same page, like, meaning like know your flaws, like get on the same page,
Casey, for you, was there a moment on a project or a time in your career that this kind of started forming? Like for you, do you think there was like a specific time that you were like, oh, I need to start learning everything? Or were you just kind of like just immediately like, I want to be able to learn, because you have dabbled in so many different positions and stuff?
I'm like kind of an ADD kid, and I really was never interested in things that I'm not naturally interested in, and I've really only followed the stuff that I I have interest in, and that those interests are techie things like music tech and camera tech and creative things, which is like stuff you do with music and in front of or behind the camera. So it's been luckily really easy in this world because I have this sort of weird hyper focus when it comes to things I want to do. And like I actually like I'm a pretty good editor because I will just sit and do it until it's done. And I work really fast, and because I have this weird ability to just hyper focus and work through things and not like I'll forget to eat or drink, like I'll just hyper focus. And but if you ask me to do something that I personally wasn't interested in, it would take me forever. I would be, procrastinating. I might not even do it. Like I was a really poor student until it was a thing that I liked, and then I was like great at it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's literally the exact same thing that happened to me in school. I was a horrible student, but I grew up like in the theater and was performing like 10 shows a week and like on like the Boston like the main stage there. And like I was obsessed with that, and I like was like on time, knew everything. I was like I was all in. And then when it came to school, I was late and didn't care and didn't give a shit. And that's so I connect with that too.
So I think it was just like picking up how to edit something, or like I had friends that like wanted to play music, and we all learned like these editing programs for music and guitar, and I played drums and keyboards and stuff. Sorry, cars going by. You guys hear that? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Good. But yeah, I got distracted. See, ADD. No, no, I just think that it's so much easier when it's something that you care about. And I think like I've kind of taught myself, like if it's something that is within it that I'm supposed to technically on paper learn or but it doesn't really interest me, like I'm not going to force it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's certain things in it, like there's certain limitations I've hit in editing, which is whether it's like these plugins or like even color correction that I love and respect, but I don't personally feel the need to learn. I leave that to the professionals, and I don't think I have the eye for it exactly the way that some people do. And I bet you there are people who came up in it and they geek out on that stuff the way I would geek out on something else. And so knowing your flaws, I guess, and just knowing like, okay, that's something I would outsource.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And that's completely fine.
Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep going.
We're going to keep on trucking along, everybody. We are now at the top 2 tip.
Woo!
Which is, this is hugely important. Top 2 tip is, it's better to over-explain everything. Not only so the team is clear on everything, but so you can hear yourself say it out loud a bunch. So much of what we've been talking about, but also you, Casey, is communication. I mean, a director literally is directing. He's the end all be all of how communication will be for a project. Right. I think in some respects, like you set the standard for how are we working. Is everybody understand?
Just so everybody knows what they're doing, and you got to take your vision and just vocalize it to everybody so they know what they're doing.
This was my biggest learning curve too. Like I would say that especially with Jokers, there are so many departments and there's so many people, and I think this is where I probably dropped the ball first if I like in any way. Like I think, and I had people that were close to me basically teaching me this tip and being like, you need to explain that to every department. You need to. And the more I explain things, the more people, you could see on their faces, people be like nodding their head, like, yes, this is what we needed. And the more you kind of talk it out loud, you also, that's the point I make is like you hear yourself say it, and then you know it better. And if the more solid you are, and the more that you're communicating it, obviously, but the more solid you are, the better it will come out. And you'll start to poke holes because you'll be like, wait, how can it be that if we're doing this shot first or whatever, as you're talking it out. And I think that's that's just key. Like I said on some of these other tips, this is the true getting on the same page. It's like really getting on the same page.
Well, I have no doubt that like learning this and putting in reps of explaining through what you're going to do or what you want or what you're trying to capture, it's probably helped with the previous tip on how to speak to specific departments to make it make sense for other departments too. Because, I mean, how does it apply to them,
Yeah. You can't be like, okay, then we're going to shoot him out of the cannon. I'm like, oh, wait, what?
But they're like,
wait,
I'm doing sound.
Wait a second. What?
Are you asking me to shoot?
What did you're like, yeah, I just thought of that. So it's happening.
But to your point though, like there are times that we didn't do this at first. And then we started having this meeting at the top of, or at just some point during, like before we really got going, where we just talked out the entire creative and we talked out camera stuff and we talked out the flow of the day. And within that meeting, you're kind of like, you've thought about this stuff, but as you're saying it, you're sort of walking through every pace again. And because you're saying it out loud, you're being extra clear because it's like you put in your head like you're talking to a person who's never heard this plan, because there are some people who haven't. And within that, you start to say things that like are true, but like you haven't vocalized yet, even to yourself. And so that meeting I realized was so important, because then sometimes you're like, and then this person comes, wait, how do we get that person in there? And then you have this quick, like, oh, okay, great. Okay. Then we do that. All right, let's talk about this after that. And then, so it was really helpful to, because I come from like sort of an improv background, and you have to speak on your feet a lot. And I feel good about that. And I also feel good about, making leaps of knowledge or making leaps of, within your speech, like, and so it'll be something like, and you use like an example and, you're kind of off the cuff. Right. And then within that, you kind of, you find some really nice moments. Like you sort of, it's like a good practice to talk out loud, because in your head, you almost make an excuse. You're like, I'll get to that later. But when you talk out loud, you're like, oh, well, now I said it. I stepped in it. We got to figure it out.
It's and you mentioned this earlier, but the whole like, you have to like poke holes in things to make sure that it's, it's like hole proof, I guess. And the more you talk it out, you're able to like pick out like the holes, and then you're like, okay, well, how do we, fix that? How do we do this?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh shit, why am I looking at this Swiss cheese?
I'm sound. Why am I in this meeting? I'm the sound guy.
I'm poking all of these holes in this cheese. It's Swiss cheese. That is the stupidest dad joke ever. I'm sorry.
Sound has to be in every meeting on our show, because there's so much that's like we said, variables that we have to hide gear. So it's like, if that person doesn't know, we have no audio.
That's true. And for jokers specifically, they were like, okay, where is he walking? Because I have to put a microphone in this like plant in the middle of the mall, or like a cup or something. Yeah, so that they know.
So wild. Guerrilla sound. Guerrilla filmmaking.
All right, well, let's go to the top one tip, everyone.
This is the most important tip.
Number
on how
one,
to be a director.
Number one, trust your instincts, but don't be precious with your ideas.
So this goes a little bit to the perfectionism thing, but I think that trust your instincts is the main key here, because like you said earlier in your preamble about being a director, it's like there are different directors that do things differently, and that is your superpower, right? Is like your version of it. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that like the reason you're here and like your instinct is the right instinct, even if, but feel you should know that should change, that idea, like, or some of the ideas, but you are kind of the one in charge. You have to think of it like this: even if it's not your idea, you're in charge of implementing it, and it kind of becomes the project's idea, right? So drop the ego of like whether it's my idea or your idea, or where the idea came from, or whether you have to kill your idea and take someone else's, because you have to kind of embody like what's best for the show, and know that even if it's not your idea, like it's still your foot forward, So in that way, it's like, they say like kill your babies. Like it's like you have to be able to be okay with that, even if it's something you really love. If it doesn't work for some reason, or if it's just doesn't feel right, you have to be fine with it. Like you just, and
That's right. The top one tip is be okay with killing your babies.
kill your
That's
darling.
the number one tip. Murder your children.
Your creative children,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
or they'll murder you.
Correct.
Um,
They'll haunt you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's interesting though, right? Because that's also this like backwards thing a little bit, because you're like, or hypocritical, like where you're like, trust your instincts. And if sometimes like people would, like those perfectionists will be like, well, if I'm trusting my instincts, I wouldn't kill that idea. But you have to kind of know, like, there's a reason why it's not working, and don't force it. It's like better off, it's still your instinct to know it's to kill it, So it's even if it's not your idea coming to fruition, it is your idea to get rid of it, or it led you somewhere. And things have to change sometimes.
I think that's one of, I think this tip is one of the beautiful things about like a creative profession like a director, is because you have to kind of relearn this with every single project, every single team, because there's like sometimes the instincts or ideas that you have are going to be completely different from the last project you have and stuff. It's like you're constantly relearning how to do what you do, which is one of my favorite things about like being an artsy fartsy person.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts of this job, especially with Impractical Jokers, is I was like a writer and comedy producer for so long that there are so many times that you come up with an idea and then you just sort of like send it out to be produced. And when I got this role, I started to take ideas I wrote and that I, as a representative of the writing team, to bring those ideas and to see them all the way through, which was kind of the first time in history of the show that really happened, that the people that were coming up with the ideas were executing it to the end. And that's been so exciting. And there are times that like I've come up with a bit and we have shot that bit, and then in certain situations I think I was not, when people would kind of be like, well, what if we change this to this? In the past it would just happen, no one would even ask us, and they would just change it. And this time I got to sort of fight for some of the ideas that were worth the fight. And you'll know when it's time to kill or time to change or time to fight.
Yeah. You'll know when you're going to have to kill
your children, or when you have to fight your children. No,
fight your children.
Fight for, But and I got to learn that too. Like when there were times that I fought for an idea that I came up with to be the way I wanted it, and it worked out. And I'm sure there's probably times where I've been like, no, it should be like this, and it didn't. And I'm like, face that has the egg on it, and that's okay. It's fine. Everyone's fine. But like, it's just a learning curve of like, and then you just know next time, like, oh, that worked. And now everyone will believe me because that worked, or that didn't work. And now I know, and I can move on, so it's great. It's just trial and error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you also, when you have a bad idea, you gotta also be like, okay, yeah, this is bad. I'm gonna kill it.
Now I'm gonna kill myself because why did I think of this idea?
I'm in sound
because I said it out loud, and all of the departments looked at me like I was a hack.
I'm the sound guy. I don't understand.
My favorite version of that is like when you're like, I'm gonna kill it, but for the record, I do think it'll work, but it's fine. We'll kill it. Like that's the best one, because then you're like, okay, I'm being the bigger person, but for the record, I do think it'll work, and maybe I'll bring this back later.
If it doesn't work, I told you so. I get the points.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take the high road. I know I'm a sound guy. I shouldn't have tried to direct. This was a bad idea.
Right.
I'm gonna go.
That was a bad idea.
I'm gonna go smother it with a pillow.
I'm gonna go kill my.
I actually want that. I want that sound guy. The sound guy that wants to direct. I want him. That's the person.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hey, well, all right. Well, those are the top 5 tips, everyone, on how to direct, huh?
Hey, are you comfortable to direct? Because I just got a script.
I've got this murderous rage in me for some reason.
Well,
that's a bad idea. Bad idea.
No, that's great, because this is a script about killing creative babies. It's in the style of Soul.
Yes.
The Pixar movie, but it's just a bunch of ideas and their babies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the first R-rated Pixar movie.
I'm excited.
Are you ready to direct it?
Yes, I'm going to direct that. That'd be good.
Well, Casey, this was absolutely incredible. and so engaging and fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
So informative too to look at it from a perspective that we didn't have. We didn't.
Yeah.
But do you have any final words for the people listening on how to be a director?
I don't know. It's funny because I've been like on because just like you to do some stand up and comedy and stuff. And when people are like, should I get into comedy? My instinct is always no, because it's so impossibly hard, and you'll probably, the chances are that you won't get to where you think you want to be, unless you could just enjoy the journey, which I do. But I don't think that's for everyone. But with directing, it's different. There's getting into the industry, getting into like filmmaking is like this other thing that really you don't just expect to become, Spielberg. You're just kind of like, I want to learn these things. So I think that my favorite tip is probably actually just like learn every department, because if you're interested in that, just do that stuff. And so I think those are my final words. It's like just learn the stuff you want to learn and see where it takes you. And don't put any pressure to be the Spielberg of whatever it is.
Well,
amazing.
There we go. That is
amazing.
That is a great place to round it out.
Well, thanks for watching the Man Doozy podcast, everybody.
Yes, please comment what your favorite tip was, or even if you directed, or if you have directing stories or whatever, like let us know.
Let us know. Share this with your friends. We're on Instagram. We're on every platform you can think of.
Instagram, of course, is where the party's at. That's where you can find our incredible trailers.
Yeah. There are no bad ideas.
There are no bad ideas.
No bad ideas on our Instagram.
We never share bad ideas.
Exactly.
Ever. In the last 3 years of this podcast.
Yes.
Do you have a MySpace?
We don't have a MySpace anymore.
You said every platform. You said every platform. Did you actually have one on MySpace for this podcast?
No.
You know what? And we should probably
know what? Maybe it was a bad idea to say every platform.
Because immediately I got you.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, you know what? I'm the sound guy, okay?
You know what? This was a bad idea.
This is a bad idea.
But yeah. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, this is a great moment. Please, if you like this episode, please, freaking lights, camera, action on that like button.
Yes.
Get that crafty on that subscribe button.
Don't be a dick.
And don't be a piece of shit.
Don't be a piece of shit. That makes sense to me.
Me too. Lastly, if there is anything that you want to learn about and have us teach you while we also learn about it, let us know. The sky is the limit. You want to come on and teach us something? Send us a DM. We are open.
And we'll let you know if it's a bad idea.
No. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was amazing. I am Kirk, Lights, Camera, Actions, Crafty Koz.
And I'm Alex, MySpace, Staub.
And the last thing that I wanted to ask was, Casey, is there anything that you can tell us about this untitled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Paramount project that's been optioned?
I'll say this: I'm probably not directing it. It's we don't know what's going to happen. We just it's done, but all I could say is it's in the ether. The script is in the ether. The writers' strike is, and the acting strike has sort of thrown some wrenches. So we have no idea. So I think just everyone say a prayer.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm going to definitely be tracking that. Well, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Any final words?
I got nothing. This was awesome. Always good to see you. I miss you, Casey.
I miss you.
And it was a pleasure to meet you, Casey. Thank you so much.
Let's do some tequila on set soon.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll figure it out. We'll do it.
Thank you, everybody. We will
see you next week.
Woo! Woo!